loved when he came on our show last time because he's just passionate about our valley. He's been involved with building our valley. He takes great care of us in our building. Just a good person to have in our community, Mr. Jim Backer at JSB Development. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
See, we had to squeeze him in. The poor guy, we took him away from his lunch. I mean, he's going from meeting to meeting to meeting, but he gave us a half hour today to kind of share with us what's going on in his world, what's going on in the Santa Clarita Valley, and just have a good time with. So we appreciate it.
You bet.
Yeah, so we were talking about a little bit, Don and I talk a lot about residential real estate, and we don't have too much of a commercial real estate insight because it's not what we do for a living. So you are our expert, and we'd love to know what's going on in that world.
Well, maybe it's a little scary if I'm your expert, but I've been up here a long time, and I would say the commercial market is recovering pretty well. And when I say the commercial market, you really kind of have to look at the different segments. So the industrial market, I'll start with, we have probably 22 million square feet plus of industrial space up here that varies in all sizes from 800 square feet to the post office is almost 800,000 out there, although that's their own facility.
And you were instrumental in that on the Commerce Center there. Right. I know you're a big piece of getting that going on the Commerce, which is just is the industrial park, basically. They call it the Commerce Center. That's on the side of the 126.
Right on the west side. And I helped to launch that back in the early 90s, and we were fortunate to find the U.S. Postal Service and have the only 60-acre parcel they could find, and that really helped us launch that project.
That's one heck of an anchor tenant, by the way.
Yeah, it's a good start. It was pretty good to work with those guys. And but I know that L&R is just about to come out of the ground with some new product that reflects the probably 4% vacancy that we have out there right
now. Only 4% right now?
Yeah. So there's
What was it at the peak?
Industrial probably never got as high as everything else. Industrial probably got to 7 or 8%, but
it's almost double though.
But where the industrial saw weakness was in the rent growth. I mean, it just kind of stopped. I mean, it was just flat. So.
And keep that in mind when our lease comes up and next year.
Nothing but up. No, I'm getting to the office. It's just a clear sailing to the skies. But industrial has started to see recovery in rents, and in the values have been there for buildings again as well. But from that period from 2007 to 2011. Definitely had a lot of weakness because a lot of the small business owners who had bought industrial units or office units were having struggles in their business, and so they had a
wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah, exactly. None of us would, and we've forgotten that part.
Yeah,
and,
thank goodness.
But they had to go look at their real estate as an asset that needed to maybe be sold or refinanced or something, and plus some businesses went out of business, so they just didn't have a need for the space anymore. So there was a bit of flood of units on the smaller side, let's just say under 10,000 square feet, probably even under 5,000 feet, that really took the brunt of it. That's really where a lot of the vacancy was. And in the big office, the big industrial spaces were full and people couldn't find space. Because as you may know, the San Fernando Valley essentially has zero vacancy on industrial. I mean, it's musical chairs. I mean, I think it's officially 2%, but it's very little space down there.
So you almost have to wait your turn.
A little bit you wait your turn, and a little bit is that and some of those things down there are really past the point of economic obsolescence. So they're gone.
Well, if you just tuned in, you're wondering who's giving this insight of what's going on in the commercial markets here in the Santa Clarita Valley, San Fernando Valley, and so forth. We're here with Jim Backer with JSB Developments. And if you've probably heard that name, Jim has been involved in numerous projects that we're all thankful for. One of them, of course, is the Commerce Center we were just talking about, which is the industrial park on the west side of the 126, but also this thing called the Town Center Mall, kind of involved in that. And I know you're working on another project as well. So that's who's with us, Mr. Jim Backer with JSB Development. Thank you again, sir.
You bet.
Jim, I grew up in the San Fernando Valley and lived out there for most of my life until I moved out here, and I'm not going back. If anybody's listening out there, but the thing is, the reality is not only is, like you said, most of those places have reached obsolescence and really should be torn down and build something else. But the other thing that they run into is that it's so expensive. We are still a great bargain for a business that wants to move out here to get a lot more square footage. So anything that's warehousing or anything that occupies square footage, we lower their cost per unit on whatever it is they're manufacturing. So that's why I think you also have the migration from the San Fernando Valley to here.
Well, what we also encourage people to look at, no matter where they're trying to go, is what's the total cost of occupancy, and we include employment rates in that, and what people pay people. And I don't want to argue to pay people less, but the way it kind of works is if you start out Antelope Valley as the farthest north, and then you come south, people pay more per hour, almost $1 per hour more as you come south. You get to downtown, and they pay the most, probably, or west side.
Oh yeah, my CPO always gives me a hard time of what he has to pay on the west side versus what we pay here.
Right, and some people, can look at it, saying, oh, we're not getting paid what we deserve and all this. But at the other hand, the way to look at it is, people are saying, hey, it's worth it to me to take less money because I'm going to pay more myself to drive over the hill to make more. And I think what we found for most companies is they're very happy with the employees they have here, and they feel like they get a great chance to get good employees.
We worked out with that. You've met our employees. They're great. I mean, we couldn't have done any better.
Exactly. So I think that's the other thing, too, where sometimes people get into price per square foot and becomes a fun cocktail party conversation and all, but really the issue is what's the total cost to the business to occupy? And I think we're a great fit, like you said, and very competitive with anyone.
Oh, that's a good point. And I like that insight because we haven't really brought that up. Everybody does only bottom line it based on cost per square foot, but it does have a lot to do with what you're paying for all the ancillary parts.
Right.
Well, especially, like you mentioned, labor. Labor could be 30% of your expenses. I mean, so that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big part of ours, I know. And if we had to increase that by 30%, it would make a big difference at our bottom line, that's for sure.
And labor is probably even well over that for a lot of companies.
Yeah, depending on the industry.
I mean, as high as 80%.
It's over, well, yeah, it's probably 60% of ours, 70% of our overall costs. And the other part's some building we lease out.
Cheapest deal in town.
All right, we're here with Jim Backer at JSB Development, and we're going to talk about a really fun project that Jim and his crew are working on that you aren't going to want to miss. Great insight of what's happening here in Santa Clarita when we come back to the Gino Real Estate and Finance Show on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.